In a deadly shooting in Lincoln Park is now formally indicted on a murder charge. John Conway turned himself in after police shared this video. The Marine veteran accused of gunning down Alexander Nestruck last month near Clark and Fullerton. Investigators say Nestruck was acting erratically and threatening people before confronting Conway.
When you learn this is the officer you had the same interaction with, were you shocked, surprised, not surprised?
I was not surprised, to be honest with you.
It's an officer Hector Montalban is all too well familiar with.
That guy thinks at this point, because he's been getting away with it for so long, that he's untouchable.
Miami-Dade police officer Danny Torres. Torres is the officer seen on body camera forcibly removing Dolphins player Tyreek Hill from his car after another officer pulled him over for speeding in September. The officer is now on administrative duties while an internal investigation is conducted. But it's not the first investigation Torres is at the center of. NBC6 Investigates learned the department has suspended Torres several times before. The most recent, a 10-day suspension in 2019 after a disciplinary report says Torres' quote, pattern of behavior indicated that you have repeatedly failed to adhere by departmental rules and procedures.
Police officers are there to protect and serve. This guy is not there for that.
Torres served the 10-day suspension after Montalban complained that another Miami-Dade police officer was driving recklessly in 2018. The disciplinary report says Torres stopped Montalban and asked for his license. Montalban says when he got his license back, it was damaged, and the officer gave him a traffic citation for that.
My license was in perfect condition. It wasn't torn. It wasn't broken in half.
However, the investigation showed Torres did not tell dispatch where he was after he initiated the stop and turned off his body-worn camera. During the investigation, Torres denied damaging the license and said he turned his camera off to save battery. Montalban wants something to change.
What would you like to see happen?
What would I like to see happen? I honestly would like to see, what I would love to see happen is for them to go back in all of these cases that have been put on him, all his administrative leaves, whatever suspensions he's had. And actually, they need to make him an example. They should charge him with something.
So we mentioned other suspensions. Torres was suspended for 5 days in 2016 for violating use of force, another 5 days in 2017 for using profanity. We've also learned there are other suspensions, one for 20 days, two more for 5 days. We did reach out to the officers' attorneys, but we did not hear back from them. And then Miami-Dade police, they have declined to comment on these previous cases. They said these records speak for themselves.
Good morning, and welcome to the Bad Apple Report. It's 7:30 a.m. bright and early right here at home on the range. Thank you so much for being here today, folks. I really appreciate it. We're going to start our day out in Monk's Corner. That's right. It's good news to start the day out with, you guys. I love starting the day out with good news. And this cop has been canned. Fantastic. All right. A Berkeley County Sheriff's deputy arrested and handcuffed a Post and Courier reporter December 20th who was attempting to attend a magistrate court hearing. The reporter, Alan Havorka, said the deputy would not allow him to enter the courtroom of Magistrate Judge Martin Housand. Havorka said he protested, saying they had a right to attend because court proceedings are open to the public. Havorka said he was cuffed and detained for more than 30 minutes before other Berkeley County Sheriff's Office employees removed the cuffs. Uh-oh, what happened? Sheriff Dwayne Lewis stepped in and directed Havorka to be released. Lewis said the reporter should not have been handcuffed and threatened with charges for persisting in his efforts to get into the courtroom. There was a lot of miscommunication, Lewis later told the Post and Courier. Lewis said he fired the deputy, Dennis Chapman. Adios, Dennis, knucklehead, and ordered an internal affairs review. Okay, that's what happened. Havorka said he asked to speak to the judge, but that did not happen. After handcuffing Havorka, the deputies sat him in the lobby area and called for another deputy to take Havorka to be booked into the jail, but he was not taken there. Article 1, Section 9 of the South Carolina Constitution states that all courts shall be public. This should always be the case, with very few exceptions, as when the jury is being charged or during sensitive testimony from a witness, said Jay Bender, a longtime media lawyer for the South Carolina Press Association and its member newspaper, including the Post and Courier. So anybody should be able to walk in to a courtroom anytime, except in limited circumstances, Bender said. A reporter has no more rights than members of the public in South Carolina, but a reporter also has no fewer rights. Havorka said he was told by a courtroom bailiff and a detective that the magistrate does not allow anyone to enter the courtroom after proceedings have started. Oh, that's what they're going to go with. A message seeking comment from Housen was left on his cell phone. But by publication, the call had not been returned. The sheriff said the internal review would include whether the judge and bailiff can set policy and when court can open and who can enter or leave the courtroom. Okay, I see what they're going to do. All right, there's no incident report filed on the matter, a sheriff spokesperson said. We're deeply troubled that our reporter was handcuffed and detained while trying to do his job to report on the public court proceedings, said Jeff Taylor, executive editor of the Post and Courier. We will follow up with this and the state's court administrators, and will always insist on protecting the public's right to have a full access to the courtroom. That is true. Okay. That's good news. That deputy was fired for being a knucklehead. On with the show.
At the Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection Forensic Crime Lab, they're peeling back the layers, pixel by pixel. Special extraction technology, News 8 getting an exclusive look at, something called Gray Key that can get inside your phone, even if it's locked with that 6-digit secret user code you made.
We're in a high-security area of the lab. This is where phones are worked on. Keep in mind, before this technology existed, police agencies could not get all of this information off of your phone.
It's actually very difficult, so the user passcode is set for security reasons. It will make it so you or I cannot get into the device itself.
You can tap delete over and over, thinking you're erasing things on your phone, but in this digital age, nothing is ever truly gone, and this technology is now changing police work here in Connecticut. Before Gray Key, criminals could plan, maybe even brag on their devices. Phones are plugged into this high-tech device, and within hours, the data comes spilling out. What can it see?
Your contacts, your internet search history, your pictures, your videos, your location data, your email, your calendar.
That's not all. Venmo and Cash App data, banking info, social media, child's play for this technology. One agency using this powerful crime-fighting weapon, Waterbury Police.
Shooting cases, homicides, 2 recent homicides. Gray Key was used to get in the phones and collect information that assisted us with identifying people that were involved.
Our phones are more than just tools. They're witnesses to everything we do. And in the hands of investigators, if you're a criminal, your phone isn't just a device. It's a time capsule that always leaves a trace.
So I have your
new information surrounding an accidental shooting of a driver during a traffic stop that happened nearly 2 weeks ago on Main Street. News4Jax has obtained a copy of this memo, which was emailed to patrol officers last week. The memo details what officers should consider when detaining someone who's carrying a concealed firearm. News4Jax reporter Eric Avignon explains.
News4Jax has learned that this memo was emailed to patrol officers the day after we aired this story about what you should and should not do if you're legally allowed to carry a concealed firearm and get pulled over in a traffic stop. The story was a follow-up to a story we aired about a man who was accidentally shot in the leg with his own gun during a traffic stop. Listen to what was said during a news conference to describe how the driver was injured.
They were cooperative. No struggle at all. Told the officer I do have a firearm, and the officer chose to separate that individual from the firearm during the traffic stop. The firearm was in a holster, but it was inside the waistband. It was not an exterior holster. And the officer was attempting to remove the firearm, not sure how the gun was discharged, but as she was removing the holster from inside the waistband, the firearm discharged.
The memo that was sent to patrol officers following that accidental gun discharge outlines what they should and should not do when detaining someone who is legally carrying a concealed gun, especially now that a new state gun law that took effect last year allows legal gun owners to carry a concealed gun without a permit. The memo states that a person carrying a concealed firearm does not mean that person poses a threat or is ineligible to carry a concealed gun. It goes on to say that officers should not seize a detained person's gun or remove it from a holster or vehicle without articulable suspicion that the person presents a threat to the safety of others, including the officer. The memo defines posing a threat as the detained person matching the suspect description of a crime, the detained person leaving a known drug house while armed, or a detained person being verbally aggressive toward the officer.
And we have a right in Florida to be armed.
Eric Friday is a civil rights attorney who specializes in cases involving gun laws and gun rights. Although he is not affiliated with this case, he says given the fact that police have already said the man who was accidentally shot was cooperative with the patrol officer during that traffic stop,
the officer is going to have to justify her legal basis for conducting that seizure. And I don't think she has one.
The memo really clarifies to the officers.
News4JAX crime and safety analyst Tom Hackney is a retired JSO director of investigations. He says the new Florida law that allows eligible citizens to carry concealed guns without a permit and without having to tell an officer they are armed now means
officers encounter a lot more people with guns, and the burden is there about determining who is legally able to carry guns and who isn't, but still walking that line of protecting people's civil rights to carry those firearms.
This memo also goes on to explain when a person should be detained, how long they should be detained, and when it's feasible to frisk someone.
You never point a gun at anyone on the range, period. This one thing should have deemed this crime reckless.
An emotional day in a Pickaway County courtroom. Rodney Osborne's wife trying to put words to her pain.
My person is gone. Joe went along in this world and he loved his family.
David Pearson saying a few words.
I've known him a long time. Like, I love him.
Before he was sentenced to 6 months in jail and a $1,000 fine.
That's all. All right.
The shooting death happened in early April. We learned it happened during dry fire pistol drills. A report from the law firm representing Osborne's family says Pearson noticed deficiencies as to how Osborne performed his drill, and he had Osborne mimic his movements. That's when Pearson unholstered his own pistol, pointed at Osborne, and pulled the trigger. Osborne was shot in the chest and later died at the hospital. Months later, the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction fired Pearson, a judge sentencing Pearson to the maximum sentence, spending half of 2025 in jail. Osborne's wife now dealing with the reality that her husband won't be coming back.
He was our world. He did everything. He was always there. I don't know what else to say.
As she's grieving, she wants answers from the state ODRC.
I don't agree with the secrecy or the transparency. There's no transparency there. We don't know what happened. We don't know what the prosecutor presented to them. How did we get negligent homicide? This should have been, at the very least, reckless. I don't understand.
This DOJ report on the Worcester Police Department has completely divided this city. The meeting was tense from the start.
If they're being the criminals, then they need to be behind bars.
In this room, I sit here as many people have come to this mic and called me a rapist and called me a criminal.
Worcester City Hall was packed Tuesday night, both in and out of the chamber. The halls turned to a sort of melting pot for this cultural debate. Dozens watched the meeting on their phones, those supporting the police and those seeking accountability standing shoulder to shoulder.
I appreciate it. We have other people want to speak.
I know that this council, has the power to stand with these women.
The Department of Justice's 2-year report found Worcester police engage in a pattern or practice of conduct that derives people of rights, including allegations of racism, excessive force, and the sexual assault of women under threat of arrest.
When this happened, I just had to step up.
William Gardner is a former Worcester police officer and says during his time on the force, he saw abuses of power. He spoke at Tuesday's meeting and was interviewed by the DOJ for this investigation.
It's just not right. You know, it's one of the greatest jobs in the world, actually, if you do it right. And they refused to let me do that.
Folks, I was banging through the headlines like I got to do, and I came across this dirty bad apple from Hopkinton. Okay. And so for all the folks that are keeping up with this dude from Hopkinton, here's the story on him. Former Hopkinton Deputy Police Chief's grape trial is postponed. When it's happening? Sometime this decade, maybe. The trial for former Hopkinton Deputy Police Chief John Porter, who is accused of graping a teenage girl 2 decades ago, has been postponed until next spring. All right. Delayed justice. Porter was scheduled to go on trial on Monday, but he's been rescheduled for May 12, 2025. According to Middlesex Superior Court records, the delay is due to some outstanding discovery issues. Ooh, gross. The next court date, a trial readiness hearing, is scheduled for April 10th. Porter is charged with 3 counts of grape of a child. Okay. Deeply disturbed. Former school resource officer charged with graping Hopkinton student. Charges stem from allegations from when Porter was Hopkinton's school resource officer. He is accused of graping a girl in 2004 and 2005 when she was 15 years old. Okay. And a 10th grader at Hopkinton High School. The allegations did not come out until nearly 20 years later. All right. That's the deal with that goofball, John Porter. Let's move on with the show.
Town of Saltville, Virginia, accepting applications for a new police chief. The town posted on social media that applications for the chief of police position are available at Saltville Town Hall or by emailing the town manager. The deadline to turn in an application is January 17th at 5 p.m.
Police have this entire area taped off as they investigate the shooting that happened here this afternoon. Now, one thing police tells me makes this investigation even more urgent is the fact that it was raining during the shooting. I mean, just check out all of the ponding along the road here. Police say they really need to collect all outdoor evidence before it washes away. A quiet Christmas Eve, interrupted by gunshots.
The first notification was made that came in as a result from the ShotSpotter alert and then subsequent radio broadcast. There was also a pair of 911 phone calls that indicated that there was a shooting at this location.
Police say a state parole officer fired those shots just before 12:30 in West Central Fresno Tuesday. He killed a man in his 30s.
Officers on scene as well as EMS provided life-saving measures to that individual whom we've determined to be a parolee. His identity has yet to be disclosed as we're still making notifications to family members and otherwise.
Fresno Police Lieutenant Paul Cervantes says the parole officer was making a surprise visit when he and the parolee got in a fight.
The parole officer discharged his firearm, mortally wounding this individual.
The officer was injured in the scuffle, but is expected to be okay. The parolee died at the scene. Police say other people were in the house at the time, and their account of what happened will be vital to the investigation.
I do not believe that parole has body cameras. We do have some witnesses that were on scene that are cooperating with police, and at this point what we're doing is trying to piece together what occurred.
Orange County Corrections spokesperson tells us the shooter was an off-duty correctional officer. Orlando police say that person remained at the crime scene behind this fence in this apartment complex. No arrest has been made as the OPD investigation continues. A tow truck removed this car with a shattered driver's side window from the scene of the deadly shooting early Thursday morning in Orlando. Daniel Kobe and Reyes lives nearby.
Yeah, it's been a known issue that there's been car prowlers around this area. It's happened to me. One of the neighbors I know got broken into, got their window broken and their purse stolen out.
Officers responded to the Summergate apartment complex after 5:15 a.m. Crime scene investigators spent several hours collecting evidence from the parking lot where police say someone shot and killed a man during a car burglary.
I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in self-defense. So, you know, as long as he felt threatened.
As Orlando police determine whether the off-duty Orange County correctional officer's use of deadly force was justified, WESH 2 News spoke with criminal defense attorney Jose Rivas about the state's Stand Your Ground law, which hinges on the presumption of fear of death or great bodily harm.
The general rule of thumb is you cannot use deadly force to protect property. But in this particular case, you know, we don't know whether the shooter was inside or outside the vehicle, but if somebody is outside and they're not in fear, and the danger of death or great bodily harm is not imminent. In other words, he could pick up the phone and call 911. He's seeing somebody in their driveway, somebody within a distance where he's not in fear. or of harm or great bodily harm, he could call 911. That's property. That's not great bodily harm.
Okay, folks, it looks like we've got ourselves a Boston baked bean bruiser who was not in his cruiser on Christmas Day, but this cop has been arrested for domestic disturbance. Okay, let's just get right to it and let's be serious now. A Boston police officer was arrested on Christmas Day following an alleged domestic disturbance in his Hull residence. Terrence Murray, was charged with 1 count of assault and battery on a family household member, 1 count of improper storage of a firearm, 1 count of vandalizing property, and 2 counts of Class E drug possession. Okay, let's just speculate here. So he gives his wife 5 across the eyes, his gun's laying on the kitchen table, and he's got a bag of weed, and I'm just guessing. None of that stuff probably really happened, and that's all alleged just for the fun of it. According to the Boston Police spokesman, Murray is a 4-year department veteran assigned to District 3. Oh, Murray! The officer currently on administrative duty, and the Boston Police Bureau of Professional Standards investigating the incident. Okay, good deal. Murray was arraigned Thursday in Hingham County District, where he pleaded not guilty. His bail was set at $500. Oh, $500. Okay, Boston baked bean bruiser who was not in his cruiser on Christmas Day. Gave his wife 5 across the eyes, allegedly. On with the show. Well, it looks like this bad apple from the Big Apple is like, hey, Boston baked bean bruiser, hold my beer. All right, he says that because he also has been arrested for being a knucklehead, trying to give someone 5 across the eyes. NYPD officer 26 arrested on Staten Island after he's been charged with domestic assault on Christmas Day, Staten Island, New York. Nicholas Scoree, 26, a police officer with the NYPD, was arrested on Thursday morning following a domestic dispute, according to a spokesperson by the NYPD. Okay, as detailed in the court documents, the alleged incident unfolded in the vicinity of the 60th block or whatever in there and that. One of the victims, ooh, dang. So authorities allege that Scotee assaulted his brother and his brother's fiancée, knucklehead, striking both multiple times in the face with a closed fist. See? 5 across the eyes for these knucklehead cops. Okay, one of the victims suffered injuries, including a laceration about the lip, redness of the face, and substantial pain, according to the criminal complaint. The other victim experienced bruising, swelling, redness in the face and chest, as well as pain, as revealed in court documents. Cops love to inflict pain, especially this guy. He was in the mood. It was Christmas Day, you know what I mean? The NYPD spokesperson said that Scoree was arrested and charged around 5:36 a.m. Thursday morning. Knucklehead. According to public records, Scoree has worked for the NYPD since 2020. In November of 2022, he received an award for excellent police duty. He must have beat somebody up in front of another cop. All right, Scoree faces 2 counts of assault in 3rd degree, 2 counts of harassment, 2nd degree, and he's listed. That's all listed in the complaint. Attorney for Scoree declined to comment on the matter. Oh, what a goofball. Okay, that's it for those knucklehead cops. All right, on with the show.
Australia approved the extradition of former U.S. Marine Daniel Duggan Monday over accusations he illegally trained Chinese pilots. The move, signed off by Australia's Attorney General Mark Dreyfus, puts an end to Duggan's nearly 2-year attempt to avoid to return to the United States. Duggan, a 55-year-old naturalized Australian citizen, was arrested in rural New South Wales in 2022 after returning home from China, where he lived since 2014. The U.S. says Duggan traveled from Australia, the U.S., China, and South Africa between 2009 and 2012. They say Duggan agreed to provide services to a Chinese-owned company, including evaluation of Chinese military pilot trainees and instructions on landing on aircraft carriers. Prosecutors assert Duggan received more than $60,000 for his services. Duggan denies the allegations. His lawyers contend there is no evidence the Chinese aviators he trained were military. They also argue he was no longer an American citizen when the alleged offenses occurred, and his actions are not considered a crime in Australia, noting he renounced his U.S. citizenship in 2016 at the U.S. Embassy in Beijing, backdated to 2012 on a certificate. Duggan served in the U.S. Marines for 12 years. He's a father of 6, and his family says they're devastated by the decision. His wife telling Reuters she received a letter from the government stating Duggan's extradition will take place between December 30th, 2024 and February 17th, 2025. If convicted in the U.S., Duggan faces up to 60 years behind bars.
And just like that, we've made it through another day in the annals of history. That's true. Looking at bad apples on this day in history. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. You guys are awesome. And I'm going to whip up another batch of bad apples just for you. And we'll see you right back here tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. bright and early. Have a great day.